We're live.
So do you go
Okay.
down there for business or pleasure or?
When you're ready, I'll start the meeting. Thank you. Hi, good evening, everybody. This is the Harwich Finance Committee meeting of Thursday, March 6, 2025. This meeting is being recorded. Anyone in the audience who would care to also record the session or do some kind of recording on their phone, please contact the chair or notify the chair before we start the meeting. So I see none. Everybody's shaking their heads no. So we'll call the meeting to order. I will note that we have members here: Mark Amaraz, Dan Torek, Scott Norm, Bob McCready, Michelle Gallucci, myself, Peter Hughes, and remotely from Florida, we have two members, Dana DaCosta and Mark Keller. Hey guys, can you hear us?
Can hear you fine.
Okay. Dana, can you hear us? All right, good. All right, so we'll call the meeting to order. First order of business. First order of business is approving the minutes of Thursday, February 27, 2025 that were distributed to you the other day. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I second.
All right, moved and seconded, moved by Bob.
I have a comment.
You what?
A comment.
I'll get to that comment part. Seconded by Mark. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Comment, please.
I made a couple comments in the section of the meeting about the Monomoy School budget that were missing from the minutes. Including the fact that the per student cost was projected to go up by between 10 and 11% from 25 to 26. That was the main thing that I noticed was missing. So I don't know why it was excluded, but I thought it was an important point. That's why I said it.
Okay, so what I would like you to do, get the minutes with you, or I'll give you
Rental,
mine.
But I've been watching.
I'll give you mine.
Yep.
If you would edit those, mark them up to what you'd like it to say,
Will do.
and we will, if you're amenable, withdraw the motion, and we'll table it till next meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
I withdraw my second.
I withdraw
Withdraw
the motion.
motion. All right, good. So we'll hold those till next week. Okay, under new business, we're fortunate tonight to have the water wastewater people with us, so come on up. Come on up. Actually, all three of you can come up if you want. Noreen, do you want to come up?
Sure.
We'll let you.
I could just yell from the back.
No, you can come up. We'll see you, but we don't want to hear from you. But let me see. Noreen and I go back a long way, so we can do this, right? We can do this. So we have Jason. Is it
Can I introduce Jason?
Trepanier?
Trepanier.
Yes, there you go.
This is our
Is that
almost
right?
new water wastewater superintendent, Jason Trepanier. This is our comptroller, Sandy Seeger. And I'm Noreen Donahue, the chair of the committee.
Okay, welcome
Thank you,
aboard.
Noreen.
Thank you. And congratulations, Jason, on your new position.
Thank you.
Now, if I understand properly, I always like this, I think you worked your way up in the department. You,
Yeah, it was funny. I was looking at the CCR today, Consumer Confidence Report from 2001, and I was like, oh, my name's on that right there.
here you go.
It was pretty neat seeing that.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Okay, so we got two versions of the budget. Thank you, Sandy. One that was, I don't know, like Monday or something was sent out, and then there's a slight revision that was
Yes.
sent out, I think, yesterday. And that's been distributed to all the members. Hopefully you have your copy. And what I suggest is let's start with the water department first.
Sure.
And if we don't need to know every line item, and, we're not gonna fret over your electric bill or something unless there's some big deviations from, what the history's been to what you're requesting in 2026. So maybe just walk us through that.
Okay. Yeah, Sandy and I were just going over for a few things that, where we did increase on some line items. There was one on professional services. Well, first off, the salaries, those are based off contractual, so you will see an increase there.
Are your members that are represented, is that a negotiated contract? Do you have something negotiated for next year? Or you win negotiations?
In negotiations, yes. Yeah.
Excuse me, they're in the same union as the town people.
Yeah, okay, just clarifying.
Under expenses, one that will probably jump right out at you is professional services. We increased that line item, $50,000 from 85 to 135. We're doing a hydraulic model of the water system, and that's where those funds are going to.
So that's an outside vendor that you hired?
That's correct.
An engineering firm or somebody that...
Yes, that's correct. They'll come in and do a study on our water system to see where we need to increase water mains, water flow, firefighting needs, different things like to that aspect.
And is that a one-time expense that, you know, we won't see like every year for the next 3 years, or is it something that'll take a couple of years to do?
That's correct. It'll be a one-time expense of a hydraulic model.
Yeah.
Maybe in 2 years, if we have a significant something comes in, we may have them run a model of, say there's some new buildings or new development in town. We can have them run a model and see how it would impact the water as it pertains to that piece of property. So it's a great tool to have.
Thank you.
Yeah. We did go down on some of the budget that was anticipated of what we did spend the previous year. I think a lot of our meters, our chemicals, they went up. Our chemical usage, as you know, that chemicals are going up. They will. Do you have anything to add?
We decreased our laboratory expenses every, how many years do we have to do additional testing, the UCMR testing? Is it 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, every 3 years.
Yeah, so every 3 years or so, we have to raise our lab line item because the cost of this, testing, is a lot more due to extra sampling. So that's one of the items that decreased because we're in a non-UCMR year.
So is it odd number of years, or is it?
It's every 3 years, so you'll see, we'll increase or request an increase, and then we decrease it back down, and we don't keep it level funded.
Understand.
And, yeah.
Our police details, that went up a little, and that's due to, as they're going through phase 3, wastewater, what we're doing is we're going behind them and we're replacing services. So if we need a detail out there where the guys are replacing a water service, that's why that increase, you'll see that also.
Right.
Now, do you have any questions?
I'm gonna ask that when you tell me you're done. Like, for instance, I'll just summarize. It looks like if you take total salaries and wages are up, according to this, by 2.08%, and your expenses look to be down by 3.86%, and total revenue seems to be up by 5.28%. Is that correct? Am I
That's
reading that
correct.
right? Yep.
That's correct. The 5.28%, we're gonna be anticipating some, we're gonna be paying on debt. So that's gonna be good to pay that. And we're also taking $600,000 out of retained earnings to pay for the paint tank,
Yeah.
the tank painting, instead of financing that.
Yeah, okay. All right. Questions from the Finance Committee? Mark?
In terms of your outstanding liens, how are you doing in terms of collections?
We're doing excellent in terms of collections. I didn't bring that with me, but I run it historically. Since we've been leaning, we collect probably 80% of the revenue that we, the outstanding balances. So it's probably between 80 and 90%. It comes back because those liens get added onto the property tax bill, And so they end up getting paid that way. And our billing administrator is excellent at collections. I don't know, you get water bills in town. If you missed it or forgot, there's demand notices that go out, and we give a couple more weeks, and it's consistent. So we're fortunate that we have a lot of our resident water users pay their bills in a timely manner. Like,
Yeah.
we collect most of our billable revenues within 30 days, 30 to 40 days. We're almost fully collected.
Good.
And, sorry, is the solar revenue from panels near the tanks?
Are they from the tanks?
Yeah.
It's both. So the biggest, there's solar revenue from the transfer station. So
Okay.
we get a percentage of the
From that.
revenue from that.
Okay.
We also have wireless cell tower communications on a few of the tanks. So we do get some decent revenue from the cell towers.
Those long-term leases with this,
They're 25 years.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think they've been in place for, I don't know, 15, or probably more on the other side of it.
Okay. And your salary and wages line here,
Mm-hmm.
as I'm assuming, includes what the town is doing townwide at the moment, and that's a 2%.
That's correct.
That's included here, right? So I think as a finance committee, we're waiting for something that might be significantly different from that based on what negotiations end up happening. So things could change, obviously, between now and town meeting.
Yeah.
Dan?
I notice you're budgeting substantial amount of money less for electricity. What's behind that?
I think we were following the budget statement and guidelines and increasing higher than what we needed to. And so we rein it back in. When we realize that we haven't spent as much as we budgeted for, then we tweak it and, adjust it. So we try to increase and decrease and not just keep things level funded from year to year.
Yeah.
So that's what helps to keep our overall percentages down, because we do decrease when we can, but we increase where we need to as well, and when we have additional projects.
What you're saying is that $358,249 is a more accurate estimate
Yes.
for electricity?
Yes, we based it on our FY24 actuals,
Yeah.
and then we added an increase to that.
That was
Is it 6%?
year over year.
Yeah. That's right.
So there's nothing behind that number, meaning we didn't somehow get rid of generators or what
Yeah,
have you?
no. No.
Probably
It's,
reflects more accurately the actual usage as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to a speculation as to what the usage might be. I'm just guessing.
yeah, and it's really hard to anticipate electric, because once they have a big bump, and next thing you know,
No, I know what my electric.
yeah.
bill is.
Everybody, yeah.
Do you have numbers on, for the latest numbers, what the, just water usage is, or what, how much you're supplying on an annual basis to the town?
Yearly,
Yeah.
last year, we pumped 790 million gallons of water.
Is that more than the previous years, or
That's actually a slight decrease
decrease? Okay.
from the previous year, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the dip in the water rate revenue, the third major line in your revenues, dipping down to 4.4 from 4.6
Yeah.
last year, and then recovering.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
why the usage declined?
There's a lot of factors that come to play with that. One could be the weather.
No drought, maybe?
Yeah,
last year?
everybody's watering. Maybe it was a dry year, maybe it was a wet year,
Yeah.
so it really, that's how our water revenues will sort of fluctuate with a weather pattern and how it plays out during the year.
Okay, let me ask my folks out there in TV land, do you have any questions? Dana?
No, I'm good.
Mark?
I mean, unless they're gonna talk about a rate reduction, that's,
Only for Florida residents.
okay, good,
All
all
right,
right.
yeah, Mark?
Yeah, sure. Hey, hi Jason, hi Noreen.
Hi.
Just for future reference, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. A column that would have the percent change would be handy, and you can kind of zero in on whether it's large change. Electricity down 80,000. That's quite a steep thing. A reason for that?
We're just talking about that in previous years, the estimate probably was not as close to what actual was versus what this estimate is. So I think this one's based on actual, just call it usage or performance recently, so that I think it's a more accurate estimate. That's what I'm hearing. Subject to, you know, rates going up by 20% or something, which who knows?
What does OFUS mean? OFUS.
Where is this?
Other funding uses and sources.
Indirect.
It's a mechanism that the town charges indirect costs through that line item. So we pay indirects through that line item. Also, there could be transfers in and out depending on if we have an article that we're paying out of receipts.
Can I add?
Sure.
And the indirects, Mark, are things like the health insurance for our employees, but there are also things like we pay a small percentage of every indirect cost, the administrator, the finance director, everybody, there's a formula, and we have to, you know, and also they do our, process the bills for us, our paychecks.
Payments.
You know, yeah. They do the borrowing for us, so there's quite a back and forth relationship. So that's why it's so substantial. It's $1 million a year we give back for those services.
And solar revenue, where is your solar installation if you get that much revenue?
The transfer station.
They participate in the transfer station.
Oh, okay, all right.
You know, the big field, like 3.5 or whatever megawatts are up there, I forget the number, but
All right.
they get a piece of that, or credit for a piece of that. Okay?
That's my questions on water. So.
All right, Michelle, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a general question. Looking at your expenses, how do you guys manage your procurement process in terms of, you know, seeking the best value for the town? Do you go with the, you know, state contracts typically, or do you, like, for example, I'm looking at treatment chemicals, so I would think that's something you'd want to go and bid out, or, because given the amount.
Yep, good question.
Hang
Did
on.
you?
Wait till the question gets
The
in.
treatment chemicals, that's one of the items that Barnstable County purchasing, they bid out for the county and all the water departments. So they do the chemicals. Other things that we do, we often put out to bid professional service type items for projects. And that is more, you know, you're not necessarily finding that on the state bid list. But we do use the state bid list when possible. And we follow all the procurement laws and guidelines.
Okay, that's great, thanks.
You all set, Michelle? You all
Yeah,
set?
I also had a question about overtime. I was just trying to understand what typically drives your overtime? What staff in your department?
You're gonna come to your house and you have a water leak in the street and they gotta fix it, and you don't want them to go home until they fix it?
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah, and per DEP, we have people checking the stations that go out every weekend, every holiday. They're out making sure all the chemicals, feeds working properly, there's no leaks. They take down all the readings on how much water we're pumping every day. So that plays a role in it also.
And it's also, isn't it also flushing?
Yeah, there's also flushing.
So these aren't salary positions, these are all,
We're all
Oh,
hourly,
yeah.
except for the superintendent. So we're all hourly, and we have contractual overtime for distribution and treatment operators, for
That-
just what Jason said.
Yeah.
That
The treatment
explains it, yeah.
stations, yep,
Yeah.
thank you.
you're welcome.
Wait, are you done,
The
Michelle?
comment that you had on excuse me, indirect costs triggered something in my head. That presumes that the town has an indirect cost allocation plan of some sort. Because I'm sure you're not the only enterprise fund that's being charged indirect costs. And I'm wondering that maybe a future meeting, we should include that as a topic for Joe Powers to
Excuse me?
tell us what kind of a plan that we have, how it works and that kind of thing.
Sure.
It's a big number.
Yep.
We are the only enterprise fund who contributes that. Our wastewater side does also, which we'll look at in a minute, but that's not a true it's not a true enterprise fund, it's subsidized. But we are the only one that pays that, so this is,
Which just raises the question, what programs are not being charged in the red course that
because
maybe should be?
they're all part of the operating budget, so they'd be charging themselves, I would imagine. We're a separate block of money.
So
Yeah,
Dan, it's not gonna happen before this town meeting, but eventually
No.
there will be a discussion, particularly about, and I know it's one of Dana's major topics, a discussion about, in particular, revolving funds, and if any of, say, the accounting activity is credited with something, for handling all those different things that go on, to support those revolving funds. So, it's a topic.
Are they the only enterprise fund that we have? What about
That, yeah,
Gulf?
right there, yeah.
Where water is an enterprise fund, and wastewater is a separate enterprise fund, and that's the only ones that we
Yeah,
have.
they are the only
But wastewater
enterprise we
is
have.
not a true enterprise fund. Water is.
But isn't Gulf an enterprise fund?
What's
No.
that?
Gulf?
I don't think so.
I think Gulf's
No.
revolving.
No.
No,
Which raises the question, why wouldn't Dave be sharing some of the?
That's another question, but that's,
Anyway, for
Okay.
another time.
yeah, all right. Bob?
Question related to interest. I'm looking at this year, at the budget versus '04. Maybe you can comment on what must have been a substantial change in your debt load to be making that kind of over double interest charge plan. And we don't have debt, so it's not obvious.
He's on page 2 of 2, looking at Water Enterprise Fund, I think, interest
Yes,
on long-term debt.
exactly.
1,500,
Yep.
that one?
Yep. 261 versus 128 2 years ago.
well, we took on new debt last year.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Does
Yeah.
anybody
Yes.
have
Yeah,
that?
that's for,
The size of the debt difference?
We took
Yeah.
on the debt for the Route 28 water main upgrade,
Ah,
which will start construction next year. And there'll be an additional borrowing on that too. That was just for the first half. But it's a $10 million project.
so that debt has already started being charged.
Yes.
They're paying debt service on
It was borrowed in June of 2024, so that's
Thank
correct.
Right. The only other thing, I just wanted to get confirmation that the 600 is still the number that you're going with on the payment related to the painting of the tank?
600.
600,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Is that now the total cost of the project estimate?
You want to go into that?
Yeah.
Oh, you can wait
Sure.
till we get
I
to
can-
it if you want.
There's actually an article associated with those
Yeah.
things. Yeah, we're not doing that yet, so
Right.
just be calm.
But-
Okay?
Yep.
Dan?
So you're estimating a surplus of $658,500 for the year?
That's correct.
Does that become part of unexpended fund balance?
That becomes part of our fund balance. We have projects moving forward into the future where we will be using a portion of our retained earnings or free cash. The
So-
Pleasant Lake, I don't want to get into that, yeah.
It
But
would be the unexpended fund balance. It's not
yes,
restricted to.
it's not,
It's available for future expenditures.
yes,
But it will
after
get,
it's certified
yeah,
and
it will,
voted.
it will get
It would be-
recalculated and rolled into next year's
Yeah.
retained earnings. It won't sit separately as a carryover.
It's what the town would refer to as free cash.
Right.
Mhm,
I-
Yes,
You
it
call
is.
it
Exactly,
Yes,
but it's
yeah.
contained to the water waste, it's contained to the water wastewater people, so they have control over it, subject to approval of town meeting to go spend the money.
I came from New York and I was involved in finance. And when I came here and heard the term free cash, I mean, that triggered stuff in my head. We never used the term free cash in New York.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unique here. Scott?
So in 2024, you had a surplus of $1.5 million. That certainly was more than what you expected, right? You wouldn't have budgeted,
Oh, yeah,
Surplus
we
that
didn't
day,
budget for
right?
that, yeah.
Right, yeah.
so what, just as the most recent actual year, what were the surprises?
Probably weather.
Remember?
I mean, it's usually, it's.
Weather and higher than expected volume of usage and
Right.
therefore fee revenue?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm guessing if you pump an extra $2 million, your labor costs don't go up by much, but your water revenues definitely go up.
Mhm. Yes.
Do you remember what the budgeted surplus was in that year?
No,
Just
No, I
curious.
don't have
I
that
don't
with me
have that.
either.
That's a big number. Thanks.
It would have been within around that range.
$500,000.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
could I just ask a general question, that is the, call it condition or state of the water level, the aquifer?
okay, so, my morning check on it, Peter, was we're at 32.37 feet, which isn't bad.
Above
But
what
it's
or
not
below
great.
what?
Pardon me?
Above what or below what? What is that?
Two groundwater.
The height of, to groundwater,
level.
okay.
Okay, so a year ago at this time, we were a foot better.
Okay, so you're like
So-
36.
So we're recharging late
Yeah,
and we're praying for rain.
yeah, and we didn't get a lot of snow either, so,
I know.
No.
okay.
Yeah, but it's more than that. I mean, everybody's commenting on it, obviously. It's not just us. This is very late for it not to start a recharge.
Yeah.
This is unusual to me over many years, so.
Are you hoping there won't have to be some kind of restrictions this
I
summer?
hope
or-
not, because
hope not.
ever since Dan left and Jason has joined us, we have had one thing after the other happen. I'm hoping we don't have water restrictions for our sake as well as the town, but
Okay, anything else on the budget?
we'll see.
Let's flip the page. Capital outlay, is that consistent with what's in the capital outlay plan? The town capital outlay plan?
Yes.
No exceptions? So we have gone through that several times. I don't think we need to, have the costs changed any from what's in the plan?
No.
Okay, so anybody have a question on that or need to change anything there or look at anything? If not, let's move on to the wastewater budget. Yep, who's there?
Just a quick question.
Mark, go ahead.
On the,
Remember, he's our representative to the capital outlay committee, so. Go ahead, Mark.
The water treatment plant upgrade, is that, I see a figure there, is that for a paint to shadow? They're putting in new fans or something, what is that for?
So that's the new well construction, the water treatment plant upgrade? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
There is a line item, it says water treatment plant upgrade.
Where are you seeing this?
That's for well 10.
Yeah.
Line
New
two.
well
It's-
construction.
Well, construction.
Oh,
water
new
treatment.
well
That's
construction
the new well
and,
construction, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what you're referring to,
Okay.
yes.
I didn't see waste, I didn't see, it is water treatment, okay, I see that, okay. That's all set for me on wastewater, thank you.
And that's likely to be funded with debt? With
I'm sorry,
the 3.5 million?
well, we'll consider that next year.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it would be very unlikely, because we've just taken on 1.6 million out of retained earnings
Right.
for the tank, and we were very thrilled to be able to do that. Our projects did not make the state lists, so we bear interest on them. So, that'll be a calculation we'll look at, but I doubt that we'll be able to put anything towards that.
Right.
good. All right, let's move on to wastewater.
I thought you had questions on the Pleasant Lake tank.
I had a question related to the article language itself, which I assume you want to wait on.
Okay, well, no, if that's part of the capital plan, let's go. Go ahead.
Because it said here that town meeting, the draft article, rescind Article 19, it doesn't have a number yet, says that the 2024 annual town meeting authorized the borrowing of $1.75 million for this project. And when I looked at the capital table at the end of the warrant, last year's warrant, there was only $750,000 in total debt for the entire $5.9 million of capital projects in 2025. So that seems to be an incorrect statement in the draft article
Yeah.
for the coming warrant.
I don't know if I'd call it indirect, I would talk about phrasing, but in May of 2024, the town voted to approve 1.75 million, of which was written in the language, we were contributing $1 million from our retained earnings, and the article authorized a borrowing of $750,000 for the balance. So at this year's town meeting, you'll be, as residents, rescinding the authorization for the $750,000 borrowing. That's gonna go away, and instead, we're gonna replace it with a contribution from our retained earnings for $600, which is now the price of the project. It's gone down from 1.75 to 1.6. So that's what's happening. The phrasing is done by legal people,
Yeah.
and I'll leave it there.
So the way to think about this, the original estimate for the tank was 1.75 million to paint it, of which $600,000 was gonna come from retained earnings, and the rest would have been borrowed, correct?
Almost, the first $1 million came a year ago from retained earnings, and now the balance of $600,000 is gonna come from retained earnings, and we're not borrowing anything.
Yeah, okay, all right. So what that article, whatever it's gonna be called, to rescind Article 19, just cleans up last year and moves on with a new one, the correct version this year. That's what they're doing.
It's just the language and the explanation.
I know.
The draft article needs to be, I think, changed a bit.
That's done by Joe and the attorneys, so I'll leave it there.
Well, the Finance Committee does get to comment on these things, so if we want to clarify the language, Scott, you could do that. All right, so let's move on. Capital plan, we're good, right? And any questions on the FY '26 water retained earnings capital fund, which is a little box on that same page in case somebody had questions. Certified water, the balance 2.356 million. Pipe discontinuity upgrade 100,000, and Pleasant Lake tank painting balance of cost, that's the
That's the same
600,000, for a total of
600,000.
1.6 basically.
So that $2.356 million in that little box has the certified FY '24 balance.
Yeah,
That already has the million taken out?
Yes.
yes.
And which year's surpluses does that already include? Just through '24 or just through '23?
What, the 2.3?
That's end of
Yeah.
'24, right?
It would have been, yes.
End of
That was
24.
certified in FY '24,
So it
but it's
includes that.
it's accumulated.
Just like we would get a certified free cash as of, would be June 30th, 2024,
So
for
it
that
includes that
year.
big 1.5 million.
Yeah, it includes $1 million. We
$1
took out $1
million.
million out for the Pleasant Lake tank.
Right. But in terms of additions to the fund, it includes the $1.5 million surplus from fiscal '24,
Oh,
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes it does,
Yes.
sorry.
Got it.
So once we get done doing our work, the balance will be 1.65
right.
million.
Yes.
I mean, that's what the intent here is to show. So they will carry that forward and have a balance to be used next year or following years. Okay? All right, let's move to wastewater on the budget.
I hope wastewater's a little bit easier.
Well, no, this is easy. We're just trying to put you to the test.
I know.
That's all.
It's,
You have to do that. It's
it's-
a requirement.
it's a lot of these costs we're still getting accustomed to and used to, I guess you could say, because,
Wastewater is new.
yes,
I mean, for all of us, right? We've
Yeah.
been talking about it for years. We've been digging holes for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years at least. But the fact that people are connecting up to it and we're getting some kind of flow, which I guess you can tell us, as we're going forward. The agreement with Chatham to take our stuff, or proceeded getting stuff there, that's the way to put it, right? And
Yes.
Maureen would know that better than anybody.
I don't know about that, but I
Well,
certainly
you
know
were
it.
with me during that whole discussion. Anyhow, okay, so let's go on this one.
so for total, active accounts on the wastewater right now, there's 372 that are hooked up. We have about 151 that we need to hook up to the system. That is in phase 2.
You mean that the pipe's gone by, that they need to connect within a certain period of time?
That's correct.
Okay.
So, and the total from phase 2 will be 530 for wastewater to hook up.
And what kind of flow today are we seeing? I mean,
I want to say right now, we're a little over 100,000. I think they said about 110,000. That's
Gallons
where we're at per day.
per day.
Yeah.
so is that consistent with the original calculations on how much would come out of each house or property?
Can I ask Jason where that 110,000
That-
flow figure came from?
That came from when I was talking to Mike Giggy and Anastasia from GHD.
You know, I found with the engineers that a lot of times they talk in estimated flows as opposed to actual flows. So, I mean, that's fine, we'll look into it later, but
Correct.
that seems high to me. I'm wondering if that's their estimated flow.
It is an estimated.
Don't we have a giant
over-
meter? Don't we have a giant meter in the last school piece between us and Chatham?
think
But I can find out a more accurate.
Understood.
I
Yeah.
think our actual flows are shockingly low, to tell you the truth.
Well, but you know, these things are always based on, they talk about, you know, how many bedrooms and blah, 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 and they assign some number, you know, assume for each bedroom, whatever it is. And it's always fascinating to see how reality jives with what the estimated was, because I think in this case, you end up overbuilding and underutilizing to some extent.
Mark has his hand
And I'll also say that
Who did?
up. Mark has his hand up, top
Okay,
left corner.
hang on a second, go ahead.
what little I know of the data at this point, since
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
few, but for some reason, East Harwich is coming in with very low flows compared to the industry. And I can't explain that yet, or, you know, unless all of their water goes on their lawns, you know, I can't, we don't have enough data yet
Okay.
to analyze it, but there's something going on there.
Okay,
in
Mark
East
Keller,
Harwich.
do you have a question?
Yes, I do, just a couple of them. Where would I find the charge from Chatham for the wastewater flow? Is that on the expense sheet?
Professional architectural engineering services,
Oh, so- okay, 'cause that was the
416, 416,313 is the amount for that line item. The portion for the IMA or to Chatham is, one sec.
IMA, well, I should look at is intermunicipal agreement. It's the agreement we signed to send our stuff to Chatham.
Yeah, so it's about just under $400,000.
You know, I thought it was,
366?
I can't remember last year, I thought
think
it
it
was
was
like 306.
Maybe the wastewater people want to go outside and figure it out before they come back in. Just tease.
Let's say 350, Mark, and leave it there for the moment. You know, it varies
Okay.
by all the chemical use
It's a
and
rough
everything else.
estimate
It's
because
variable
we're
cost.
estimating, best estimate is 350,000.
Thank you.
And that is
And last question.
that is consistent with the agreement, I assume the way it's.
Yes, it is.
Go ahead, Mark.
And how many pump stations are you servicing now? Because I noticed you need a new truck and perhaps to lift up the pump, but how many pump stations do you have under your control now?
You know how many are operational?
Yeah.
4.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
We have 4, and there's, with this new phase 3, there's going to be more that will be coming online.
Okay. All right, let's continue.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, go ahead, Michelle.
Can I just ask a general question, just out of curiosity? So for people, residents who have to hook up, you know, do we provide any support to them in terms of financial loans or, you know,
There's a few things.
Yeah.
Always good to get it on tape.
yeah,
If you're a resident of the state, there's a thing called the septic tax credit, which is also for hookups, and that's substantial. That could be $6,000 or $7,000 a year. If you're a resident, it's very complicated, and you have to have your tax accountant handle it, but it's, I think it might be even up higher now. They just raised it later. It's 40% of whatever your cost is, like capped at like, I don't know, maybe 25,000 or something like that.
That's
Then
the
it-
original hookup cost, and
Pardon?
is that just the original hookup cost, or does it include the operational cost of something about the billing for sewage?
It's for the design and hookup. I didn't hear the rest of your.
Okay, you confused me because you said per year, and I took that to mean
Right,
that the
okay.
homeowner could do something every
Yeah,
year to get
no.
that tax credit. It's a one-time hook it up.
It's a one-time thing. The state spreads the credit over 4 years. I'm
Okay,
sorry to
all right, thank
complicate
you.
it. Sorry for
Thank you.
that. Then the next thing that would apply would be Barnstable County has a fund called the Aqua Fund. Again, it has to be your primary home, but that's a very generous loan program with very low interest. And low interest for what you would consider to be a decent income, if you know what I mean. And then beyond that, the assessing department designed a program last year. We're really not familiar with it, but it's supposed to give some kind of additional funds to the lower income portion of those people. But beyond that, I don't really know the details.
And what's the current requirement for the time the pipe's available to the time you have to hook up? Is it 2 years or?
2 years.
It was 2 years, and then an additional year was given to March 2025.
I think that was the two, but I'm not
Okay,
positive.
because I know, yeah,
Yeah.
If I may comment, I work at the Lighthouse School, so we had 2 years, and then we got an extension
yes.
to March 2025,
Yep.
which, yeah. So.
Are you hooked up now?
No, we're in the process of hooking up, but we've asked the town to allow us to do it once the school year
Yeah,
ends, so
no,
that's not
okay,
disruptive,
right.
but we did the procurement,
Oh, good.
so
Okay.
we're ready to go.
Dan, you have a question?
Are residents made aware of those programs that you use?
They have been greatly over the years, but then new people move in and it's always, good to keep refreshing them. At the informational meetings, which the engineers do for the phases as they're coming online, that type of information is given out a great deal.
Okay.
And we have welcome packets. I mean, we try everything,
Yeah.
And in this world nowadays, there's no longer one means of communication. So, we do the best we can. When they get the order to connect from the health department, when the resident gets that, then they get a follow-up, a welcome package for us, which tells them just about everything we can possibly tell them.
Yeah, but residents like me, the elderly crowd, do they really understand?
I know, yeah.
It's on our website too, but I understand, there's a lot of different avenues to get the information, but I don't know.
I think the contractors would mention it, they know about it too.
That's right,
Yeah.
yeah.
The health
My
department knows about it. There's
Yeah.
some flyers outside the health department and some material that people
Yeah, I'm
can-
sure if you have a neighbor that had to go through the hookup thing, will complain to the neighbor next door about what the cost is, and then you'll,
The guy who I,
you hear it.
the guy who I reported to back at State Ed had slogan on his wall. I know you've heard what I said, but do you really remember? Do you really understand what I meant?
Okay, Scott, do you have a
I
question?
have a couple questions, yeah. So in fiscal '26, there's a line called subsidy, 600,000 or so. Where does that money come from? It's needed to balance the budget, to pay for the cost, but where does it come from?
Comes from the town
General,
taxpayers. That's
General
why we're
funds.
not a true,
right.
That's because we're
enterprise
just starting
fund.
this operation
Yeah,
up, and at
I
some
imagine
point,
that-
we hope it goes away.
And in previous years, it must have been even bigger when the revenue was.
not
smaller.
necessarily. Unfortunately, we've been dealing with 4 solid years of changing finance directors, and every finance director that comes in has a different method of deciding whether they're going to take our retained earnings or not, whether they're going to use our estimated receipts. So
Yeah.
we're a little bit bruised and beaten and shell shocked.
Well, I just
So-
see like $1 million in long-term debt principal in fiscal '24. That must have required a huge.
Well, no, that was the years, so one finance director decided to put the town's debt into our budget, and then they took it out again, so.
That was my other question.
Yes.
One of my other questions.
Yeah.
It went to zero all of a
Right.
sudden. That's just an accounting
It
change.
hasn't been easy.
Yep.
Huh,
Yep.
okay. Well, we know that on this committee, yes. In terms of the actual flow and the plant that we share with Chatham, did we help fund that plant based upon some expectation of how much each town would be feeding it?
The plant, I'll answer that because
Yeah,
that was
go
part of,
ahead.
that was
Yeah.
part of
This
the
is-
negotiation of that. The
that's the
plant
deal.
existed in Chatham,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So Chatham had a plant with X capacity. They had excess capacity, even though Chatham plans to sewer their whole town, if I understand. But just like the flow rates, you did the calculations are typically lower than what, the state or whatever guidelines are. They found they had excess capacity, and lo and behold, we were thinking of East Harwich and, Pleasant Lake and all that as the first watershed. And so the concept was, okay, maybe they'll entertain doing that. And so we had negotiations for several months and came to an agreement. Now, if the plant goes to get expanded over there, modified, I believe we have an obligation somewhere in there to help fund that.
So
Just
what-
like on the schools,
I do believe a certain percentage.
Yeah, yeah,
And did we buy a certain maximum flow
yep.
from Chatham?
Yep.
Do you know what that number is?
300,000 gallons per day.
300,000.
But also, just to add to Peter's, Chatham got some exquisite deals over the years in terms of funding through
Yep.
the Fed and state and everything
Right.
else. And some of that savings of theirs was reflected in our deal.
Mhm.
So the deal that we got with Chatham, we will never get as good a deal again, like if we go to Dennis or
Right.
Brewster or whoever, because, they had their savings built in for so many years, Chatham did, that we were able to take.
They were
advantage.
basically the first ones on the Cape to get it, to actually
Yeah.
build the plants, I
Right.
think.
Right.
So,
So
I just don't want people to think that any second deal is gonna be as good as
Right.
that deal. It's,
Right.
not gonna
And,
be.
and so in terms of the connections that are in the plan now, through phase 2, do you have any idea of how much of that 300,000 you'll be actually using? I guess you're surprised by the current flow, so it's
Well-
hard to say, but.
Yeah, but you could run an analysis on what they're using right now, but every family will be different. Different families moving in and out, or kids moving out of their homes and they're not using that much water anymore, so it's,
But just at
Can I-
face value, it looks like if 372 active hookups are producing 110, and we've got another 151
Okay.
around
Well-
the corner, that it looks like we're not gonna be very close to the
I'll
300.
check that
Okay.
estimate, and that is an estimate,
Yeah, okay.
so.
I don't trust that 110,000 figure. I suspect it's an estimated one.
Sure.
But there's other factors too. It's not just the phases. For instance, you can imagine right now in that part of town that so many people are saying, well, now I, went through the difficulty of getting hooked up, now I have a sewer, I'd like to add another bedroom or something like that. Right now, our zoning laws are such that whether you have a sewer or don't have a sewer, you have the same zoning laws. So you can't just do that. But over time, there's a good chance that people will say, come on, and the town will agree to do that. So in flows too, you have to leave wiggle room, because all of
Yeah.
a sudden, or let's say in the middle of the woods, a development lands in the middle of the woods that has 500 homes. Are we gonna leave them on their own septic, or we're gonna allow them to hook up? So flows, especially flows in a situation where we've only a few hundred customers, they're, a very, very delicate thing.
so how many employees are devoted, or I guess I'll say devoted or focused on wastewater?
1.5.
1.5, okay. And so as we build out East Harwich, do you see that number going up or staying the same, or? I'm not holding it, I'm just asking in the future, should we be expecting to see another body or something?
I would expect to at least see another body, yes. Yeah.
Just one totally naive question. Does Harwich have any plants of its own, or we
No.
just share with Harwich so far and might share with another town later?
Correct.
And the whole idea from the start has been that we don't have a plant, we use other people's plants. But there was also the concept of a plant at the landfill at one point in time. I guess it's still on the original plans. Who knows? I mean, this will evolve.
Right.
We're all learning.
And to Scott's question too, We contract services in wastewater. It was Weston and Sampson, now I think it's Viola.
Veolia.
Right, so that's, you know, kind of like an employee as well for now.
Yeah,
We're
I
very
get it.
happy with that right now. We don't need a full-time person, better to have the
I get it,
contractual.
I get it. So when we get down to total revenue of 156 and change and total expenses of 704,000, less the retained earning balance, we get to a subsidy of $600,000. And so for this year, that's what you're asking, that's what we're all asking the town to participate in, right? So, just so everybody knows. And again, this is in its infancy of starting up and getting its expenses are there, but the revenues certainly are not yet there. So, Bob better stand up first.
There's a petition article concerning Great Sand Lakes. Can you comment on how that, it's hard to follow the speakers that have spoken on the topic, on how that affects what's going on in wastewater development?
If I could, I actually, if that came up tonight, I was gonna ask you folks how you felt about it, because you guys are the ones who will vote on it. We are not, we take the
I'm
next.
trying to get educated.
Okay, I know. You know, I'm trying to, you know, fight
Well,
off the
I
hordes.
think the petitioners, I heard them once, only in public comment, you know, next door, and it sounded like they were more worried about drinking water and thinking, at least thinking that if the collection system gets extended to their area, then the drinking water will be okay. And then I think I saw something you might have said about, hey, our water's pretty darn good, basically, right? I mean, it, you know, meets all the requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not sure what the issue is. quite
Okay,
frankly.
so back to the first point I was gonna say is that the Water Wastewater Department will be happy to take the next group of people that the town and the select board decides to sewer from any part of town. If you choose West Harwich, if you choose
Right.
Headwaters, if you choose Harwich Port, Harwich Center, it is vanilla to us,
Yep.
you know, whoever our customers come from. So we don't have an input on, for instance, this Great Sand Lakes, the same type that you would like that type of education, you know. We're just waiting for the next group that you, the taxpayers, decide to invest in and do that. We don't,
So there isn't a plan that lays out how everything is, how the
There
next
was a plan.
40 years of
There was a
installation is
plan
going to
which
get
we
done.
voted on in 2016.
Okay.
The Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan.
Yep.
That has 8 phases that we're currently doing phase 3. The next phase, phase 4, was and is intended to include the upgrade to any treatment plant that might handle the west portion of the town. When negotiations kind of fell through with DHY for buying into the west side, and also there was a tremendous interest in innovative alternative septic systems and things like that. So way back, oh my God, I think it was the fall of '21, it was decided to do a revision of the comprehensive wastewater plan, which will involve new money models, a suggestion for phasing, changing those 8 phases, things like that. That revision isn't completed yet. So we can't
You're in
say, and
2025.
that's the reason people have been telling you folks for years why there are no numbers in the extended years on your capital plan. Because that phasing, will it stay the same or not?
Well, exactly, that question comes up on capital or debt, whichever side you want to take, as to the taxpayers aren't seeing particularly what is going to be at some point a series of large impacts from debt on the wastewater. And yes, it's not visible in any of the financial plans that.
I would say in
that
this
we see.
case, it's an attempt to say, hey, I want my area done next, really, whether it meets the plan or not. I think that they're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, that area is immediately adjacent to where we are now, right? Or is
Oh, you're
it?
talking about Great Sand Lakes?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know where it is.
No, I
I'm
know,
not
but I
sure
mean,
where you
it's,
go.
it's not far from where we're doing work these days, right, or have done work.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess so.
I mean, it's not like saying we're gonna move to West Harwich and have to run a
We
pipe
can't
from
move
there.
to West Harwich right now.
Just-
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott was nice.
I would just say that at the public comment, I also heard that the main concern was the quality of the ponds or the lakes in that area that have been degraded quite a bit in recent years and have had algae blooms. And from the finance perspective, it seems to me that, and I don't know the background because I wasn't even a citizen at this point, but this area was accelerated to an earlier phase from the original plans, and that's how it got into the application for the revolving fund. And evidently it was approved by Massachusetts revolving fund. It's on their list of their intended use plan. And there are financial implications. There are huge financial savings in going forward with taking advantage of that allocation. And not, if we don't do the article, we'll lose those subsidies, which are 25 or 30% of the cost being paid for by others. And the financial parameters of the revolving fund are getting more and more challenging. Part of the intended use plan sets up lower maximum allocations, no more multi-year funding, has to be 1 year at a time that's approved. So we have this approval that if we don't take advantage of, we're going to lose significant economic benefit.
And
Yep.
so we have that approval, but of course, it doesn't have any substance till it goes through town meeting. That's what
Exactly.
the state will be looking for. But can I just say, back to Bob's question, it seems like the complication with this project was that it didn't go to town meeting first, as all projects do. There was all of that COVID money in the ARPA funds, and the town figured out a way to use some of those funds for the engineering. So it skipped town meeting, and that's where the problems are. So I guess there's gonna be a lot to sort out between now and May 5th. To get to what you were talking about, Peter, our only issue, our being water and wastewater, just to be crystal clear now, we did a course correction last year. So when we say wastewater, we mean the Phase 2 service area, and we mean providing safe drinking water. We don't do anything with Phase 3, with Great Sand Lakes, with anything, but we made that change back, that course correction that was problematic for many years. So it's no different to ask us about that. We have a little interest than if you would ask the DPW. It's completely not in our purview. But during a public comment period on February 28th, I think, the week before that, one of the petitioners tried to make or alleged a correlation between pond water and 20 years from now, potential risk to our drinking water. And for the record, I'll say that my opinion would be that's just not true. It doesn't hold water. And my reasons would be so many. Jason can give more than I, certainly. But the main one, I would say, just to keep it simple, is that if we were to have a problem in our well area, because there are 2 wells on the, very, very far portion from where the Great Sand Lakes pond issue is, but in the same watershed, nevertheless. We have 14 wells. We're adding another well next year. Just like if we had a problem in any well area, we would adjust to that. Whether it were by, it goes into the whole system and dilutes, whether we were to sewer then, whether we were to shut down those walls. There are 10 people who are monitoring and testing that stuff all the time. And one thing we certainly wouldn't do, if we were to have a problem in those well fields, we wouldn't try to correct it by sewering 2 miles north of there. We would sewer in the area that was causing a problem to our collection system. So you will hear people say that there is a concern for our drinking water system, and we will tell you that's not true, that's speculation.
And even if you do sewer, the lag time between the time you sewer, at the time you see something down in the drinking water is quite a while.
Mhm.
I mean, I remember people talking about how long it's gonna take before you actually see something, an effect, a positive effect down at Pleasant Lake, because the transport time for everything in the ground is a long time from all the septic systems and whatnot, so. Go ahead, Michelle.
So, just a point of clarification, so comprehensive wastewater plan was approved in 2016. It's kind of up in the air now. But phase 1 and phase 2 are what you guys have been involved with to date. And there were 8 phases. So the question that I have is, for the phases 3 to 8, are the maps for those phases, are those firm, are those established, or even the maps for the phases are up for discussion as well?
It's not our purview. I mean, I could
I'm just
give you my
curious, yeah,
opinions, but it's really not our
Michelle, I'll give
purview.
you my opinion that those phases were well-defined in the comprehensive wastewater plan that was done several years ago. We now have a different firm that's doing the detail work, as far as pipe elevation, all that kind of stuff that goes on. And I would say, like anything that's a long-term, multi-phase project, things evolve and change over time. So a street that might look like it was in phase 4 may
Yes.
now not be done, or, maybe in phase 7, I don't know.
Thank you.
But isn't it true that every time a new approach is designed, one of the key things, if not the key thing, is the removal of nitrogen?
Right.
Because it's all about the oceans, the Massachusetts requirements
Yeah.
that prompted us to create this, that forced every town to create the plan. It's all about nitrogen, which is
Yeah.
the limiting factor for
Absolutely.
problems in the ocean, not in the ponds.
Yep.
Right. And back to Bob's question, however you work it in, but in Great Sand Lakes, the issue there is phosphorus, not nitrogen, so it won't gain you anything in the goal and the lawsuit against conservation law and those things.
Thank you for all that.
Okay, so let's get quickly to the last page, capital outlay for wastewater. So that's consistent. Yeah. Mark?
Can I just
Oh,
ask
Dana.
one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
This white page. Salary and wages, how many people is that?
Are you in the wastewater department or the water department?
Yeah, wastewater, just wastewater.
I think 1.5
I think
is
we
what
got
I
1.5,
heard.
Dana.
It's
And
one,
is that shared people? I mean, between water and that?
Sandy's gonna answer that.
It's 1.5, and then the 3 administrative staff members, it's 10% of their salaries is wastewater now, paid out of wastewater, because they're doing wastewater billing, wastewater customer service. So 10% of 4 water employees. 1 is a meter reader, and 3 admin are paid 10% from wastewater, 90% out of water.
And as the hookups continue to increase, I expect that will shift at some point, I'm guessing. That answer your question?
Yes?
You all right?
Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, so the vehicle replacement in 2026, consistent with the capital plan, right?
Mark has his hand up still.
Yeah, wait a second, I'm asked.
Okay.
The capital plan,
Yes.
the vehicle replacement in 2026 is consistent with the town's capital plan?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, and then if I just look at the retained earnings, people understand that, basically, we get all done. We're gonna put money on the table and say, let's collect it. Mark, did you have a question, please?
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. Do you guys know any EPA funding? Will that affect you since a lot of government things are being cut? Anything on that?
We don't have anything out there right now, so
I
I
think
guess
it's-
we'll find out next year when we get ready to, build a well.
I'm gonna say the only thing, maybe if there are any tariffs, that
That's
may affect any waterworks goods coming in. A lot of the cast iron that we get in the water in the waterworks industry. A lot of these contracts say North American made, and where do they come from? They come from Canada. So that could affect it.
Just a general question, do all your pumps stations have generators?
Yes,
So you have 14 pumping stations, you have 14 generators?
correct. Not necessarily. Some of them are operated off of one generator, and we can hit a number of different pump stations on that, but
Okay. Do you have a portable generator, in case you have a distant location, the pump goes down?
that's a great question. We do have some portable generators, but I think your question is, do we have a very large generator to go around if one of them goes down and starts pumping? That's something that we are looking into.
I think the answer is there's not a 150 kilowatt generator sitting around waiting to get towed to some location.
If we need one, I can get one very quickly.
I think Mass,
Final question, I know this is brought up at a selectmen's meeting. Do we know if Chatham can handle the additional flow for Great Sand Lake?
I wouldn't know that. That would be a
question is what's the
for
flow?
another.
Mark,
What's the flow?
We could answer that, but we're not gonna, because it's really the purview of the select board to make all those
Okay.
decisions regarding those things, and they'll be discussing it over the next several weeks. So
Select
I
board
wouldn't
should
wanna
be going back
interfere.
to their engineering firm and saying, what about this?
Mhm.
So, okay, anything else? Okay, thank you for coming in, we
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have any
Good to
other
see
Thank you
you.
all.
questions? We'll shoot you an email or whatever.
Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet
Again,
you as well.
congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Peter,
Yeah,
I have to disappear as well.
oh,
Just
okay,
let you know.
okay.
Bye, Sandy.
Just give me a second.
Sure.
Dana, is your conflict of interest training up to date?
No, but it will be by the weekend.
Okay, Mark, are you up to date? Mark Keller.
Yes, I'm up to date.
Okay, good. All right. Let me show you. I know you're up to date because you sent me something the day
Yes,
that
I'm up to
it
date.
was asked. Okay. All right, before we get on to talking about articles, we have this room reserved for a meeting on March 18th at 4:30, which is the day after the 17th, which is when the selectmen are supposed to get through all their stuff. I just want to take a count as to who can make that date and time. Again, it's Tuesday, March 18th at 4:30. I don't want to hold a meeting without a quorum. So, Mark, are you available?
I should be.
You should be. All right, Dan, are you available?
Yes.
Okay, Scott? Bob?
I will have to, that does generate 4:30 generates a conflict for me. I'll have to deal with whether I can deal with the other meeting.
I hesitate because I'm on the road at a campground and I don't know about their Wi-Fi.
Michelle?
No.
We're in trouble. Mark?
I'm available, and it is in the Griffin Room, just FYI.
Yeah, okay. Dana?
Available?
Okay,
I won't be
so,
in the group.
so 1, 2, 3, 4. Dan, you said you're available? 5, okay, so I can get a quorum, you can come late. We had to get out of the Griffin Room by 6 o'clock, so it's gonna have a cutoff.
Can you do it by phone?
Can you do by phone?
Am I,
Yeah,
does that
you
count
can-
as,
yeah,
as
you can
present?
call
Then-
in.
Then count me in.
Yeah, okay. All right.
4:30 on the 18th.
Yeah, all right, so we will set that up, Mark. I'll work with Judy to get an agenda. Okay? All right. And I'll also remind you that a week from tonight, we're meeting at 6 o'clock in this room to keep going on our business. Okay? We're all good?
Be there as well.
All right.
Thank you, Peter.
Yep, well, thanks, Dana. Dana, did you get, before you go, wait a minute, did you get the list I sent around of the articles?
Yes, and I'm updating my list now. I'll have that done too.
Actually, that was a question I had, because I know that you and I and Michelle were all involved in the conversation about who was going to keep track of the article list and the data on it. Is that something that you're doing, Dana?
Yeah, I'll send it out. Again, I'll get that done right away, the next day or two, and get that out.
And just remember, we don't have any numbers at this point in time, so
Right, yeah.
it makes it challenging to say the least.
I mean, the warrant's closed. What's the problem?
Well, I'm not gonna get into that, so I mean,
Yeah, I know, I understand.
yeah, so we have to deal with what we have to deal with. Okay?
We'll have a complete list of one-liners that we can all go by and go from there. All right?
Okay, thanks. So you're gonna drop off, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so we're gonna keep going.
yeah, okay.
Okay, so you have,
Did you say that the meeting on March 13th is at 6 PM?
yes. Not 5, 6. We did 5 tonight to accommodate the water people,
Okay.
okay? And we did 5 last week because we had the schools coming in before the public hearing. So, okay? And by the way, there'll be an agenda set out, so. But next week's one is already posted, so if you go to the website, it's posted for next week. Okay, so my suggestion is I sent to you articles as they were sent to me, okay, along with kind of a cheat sheet, right? And I would suggest, because we're gonna get jammed for time here before very long, that we look at these and the ones that we feel comfortable voting on, we should vote on, okay? You good with that, Mark?
Ready to go, I'm listening to you.
Okay, so the first one, we'll just go in order and get a sense. It's an annual allocation for the local cultural council grant. This is done every year. Our estimated cost is $4,000 by request of the Board of Selectmen. They have already voted 5-0, accept and adopt. So I think this one is safe to vote. Mark wants to make a motion.
I move to accept and adopt the annual allocation article in the amount of $4,000.
Okay, that was moved by Mark Amarez,
Second.
seconded by Scott. Is there a discussion? This will be accept and adopt from available funds, so. All right, hearing none, we'll put it to a vote.
Aye.
Mark
Aye.
and
Aye.
Scott, Bob,
Aye.
Michelle, Mark. Mark, you and I? Mark, we're having a delay on your answer.
Hang on,
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And the chairman's an aye, so it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0. Okay?
Mr. Chair, can we refer to them as an article number, just so we,
No, because
We
then when we
can't.
get real numbers, it's gonna get really confusing,
okay?
okay? So I'm gonna
Do
keep this,
Page numbers on the attachment.
I'm gonna keep this as a master list and we'll just go by it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the second one, page 2, is to defray the expense of the Chase Library and the Harwich Port Library is $20,000. It is a customary article. Selectmen voted 5-0.
I move to accept and adopt the article about defraying the expenses of the Chase Library in the amount of $20,000 from,
Second.
wait, do I need to say the end part, which fund it comes from?
Available funds.
Available funds.
Okay, so Mark Hammer has moved, Scott seconded, to accept and adopt the article entitled Defray Expenses of Chase Library and Harwich Port Library in the sum of $20,000. Discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to
Aye.
vote, Mark. Dan?
Abstain.
Abstain. Oh, that's right, I
Aye.
remember. Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Chair's an aye, so 6-0, 6-0, and Dan abstained. Not that he doesn't like libraries,
Aye.
just to be clear, okay? All right, the third one I have, to see if the town vote into various lease purchase financing agreements for town equipment, including the operating budget for FY 2026. Required, this sort of town meeting required a 2/3 vote, okay? Select board was 5-0 on this.
Is this article complete?
Article what?
Is this article complete? Is there a table or anything? Okay.
No, it's just
I'm-
called lease purchase agreements.
I move to accept and adopt the lease purchase agreements article with no dollar amount.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the article for lease purchase agreements. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
7-0, thank you very much. Hang on, just making notes. Now, the reason just for future reference, I make notes is because the votes have to get recorded in the warrant as to how we voted. And sometimes with the video, it doesn't quite catch all the names and whatnot, so I try and keep a record so when Judy sends me the minutes, I can go. Okay. All right, next one is fund the Cape Cod Community Media Center. Again, this is a traditional one. The number looks big, which it is, $150,000, but these are funds provided by Comcast. User fees. So when you turn on your cable TV and you say, why is it so expensive? At least you're getting this out of it.
I move to accept and adopt the Fund Cape Cod Media Center article in the amount of $150,486.75 from available funds.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the article, accept and adopt the article, fund Cape Cod Community Media Center, cost being $150,486.75 to be paid from the PEG Access and Cable Related Fund. Discussion. Hearing none?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
7-0, thank you very much. Okay, so the next one is titled Transfer from the Special Purpose Stabilization Fund, Affordable Housing, to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. To me, this article does not seem like it's fully developed, since it basically says, it doesn't say much actually. It says, see if the town will vote to, and it's got some words in there, don't make a lot of sense, or take any other action related thereto, in the amount of $1.5 million. I suggest this one we just hold for the moment.
I agree with that.
Everybody okay with
I agree
that?
with that too.
So we'll revisit this one.
Will we eventually get information about how much comes into this fund every year and how much is in there already?
I hope
So that we
so.
understand the context of the $1.5 million?
I hope so. Otherwise, we will be voting no recommendation pending further information, and let somebody figure it out, tell me, which means that we would not make a positive motion on it. Town meeting floor. Okay, we talked a little bit with the water people about this article that's rescind. Article 19 is voted at the 2024 annual meeting. Has to do with the amount that was authorized to borrow $1.75 million for the Pleasant Lake Avenue water tank painting. So this cleans that up, and then the next article moves forward with it. So Mark?
Okay. I move to accept and adopt the article titled Rescind Article 19 is voted at the 2024 annual town meeting, which mentions the amount of $1,750,000 for the Pleasant Lake Avenue water tank from.
Okay, Scott, you second that?
I'll second it so we can discuss it.
Yeah, okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Discussion.
I just think that it's incorrect to say that the Article 19 of the 2024 annual town meeting authorized the borrowing of $1.75 million, because it didn't. It authorized the borrowing of $750,000, and we should correct that. In substance, I agree
Yep,
with
no,
it's
okay.
great news.
All right. Did you pull up the article?
I did.
Okay. And it's clear at 7:50?
Yeah, and the table, which is almost the last page of the article, second to last page,
Yeah.
where it details the sources of funding for the 2025 capital plan of $5.9 million, has a total of $750,000 of debt, And by process of elimination, you can figure out that that was for the water tank, but if the total is 750, this project can't be 1.75.
Okay. All right, so hold this one.
So, do you want to rescind the motion?
I rescind my second.
I rescind the motion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and so do you want to hold the same on the second one?
Yeah, well, no, I think this one,
This one's okay, I think,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so the second one,
I move to transfer funds from the article titled Transfer Funds from Water Retained Earnings to Fund the Pleasant Lake Avenue Water Tank Project in the amount of $600,000 from available funds.
no, water retained
Sorry,
earnings.
The water retained earnings
second.
thing.
Okay, moved and seconded, article entitled Transfer Funds from Water Retained Earnings to Fund the Pleasant Lake Avenue Water Tank Project in the amount of $600,000 from water retained earnings. Discussion? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Aye, chair is an aye, 7-0. Okay, next one, which is another 5-0 vote of the Board of Selectmen. Affordable housing property tax exemption. And this was requested by the Board of Assessors. Estimated cost is $30,000. And this is intended to be an incentive for folks that rent year-round property, to folks that meet certain income eligibility requirements. In other words, not doing just winter rentals and then renting your place out in the summertime, on a weekly basis. It's meant to be a year-round thing, and to give some property tax relief to incentivize that.
I move to accept and adopt the article titled Adopt NGL Chapter 59, Section 5O, Affordable Housing Property Tax Exemption in the amount of $30,000 from available funds.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none.
Aye.
Oh, wait, Michelle has a question.
How do we know, like, how's defined affordable rates?
There are state guidelines that would talk about not only income eligibility, but also what, at least on Cape Cod, what a rate would be, what a rate would be for either it's monthly or whatever.
So that would be laid out probably as part of the
The
tax
assessors
credit?
would deal with that, yeah. So
Yeah.
if someone, let's say you rented out something, maybe you had an ADU in your backyard or something, and you were renting it out to someone so-called affordable housing, then you would, I'm sure it'll end up with a form that you have to apply for this. And so as part of that would be, okay, what is the rent you're charging, blah, blah, blah,
Okay,
whatever
thank
they
you.
need.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mark, put it to a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, 7-0, thank you. I was just whipping through these. We're gonna get to the fun ones in a few minutes. All right, here's one, the amend general bylaw chapter 131 relative to demolition delay. And the selectmen were 4-1 on supporting this. So what you'll see in the article, which is part of the bylaw would change from a 1-year date. In other words, giving notice that today I want to tear down a structure, you have to wait 1 year before you get a determination on that and actually do the work. They want to expand that to 18 months. Okay, now I will tell you, I believe this a couple years ago was actually 6 months and got expanded to 12. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think, Peter, that I think they were looking for 2 years and got a 1-year delay. It was a 6-month, I think the article wanted 2 years, and it went to 1 year at town meeting. Something like that.
Okay, is there a motion on this?
I move to accept the article titled Amend General Bylaw Chapter 131 relative to demolition delay. No amount is specified.
Second.
Discussion. Yep, Bob.
Personally, I'd like to ponder this longer than the second. I haven't particularly spent time on this up to this point. I'm relatively newly acquainted with this article, and I'm not at all sure whether I want to extend the demolition delay and would like to think about it some more personally.
Okay. Before we get into the motion part of it, if someone has a comment like that on future articles, it'd be good to know before we get into the motion part, just because it's gonna make it go.
Yeah, we just didn't have a chance. I mean, you
Well,
put
I'm
it up
just-
for a,
Yeah, okay.
You vote and then discuss, right?
yeah, exactly.
My personal feeling is this is obviously a property rights issue, and so I struggle with it. I mean, if we voted it tonight, I was voting nay, but that's just me based on where I am today, so I'm perfectly fine. If you want to withdraw your second,
Okay, for further thought on it, yeah, I'll withdraw
You
my
wanna
second.
Withdraw.
okay, so we're gonna hold this, okay? Okay, next one, my favorite one, petition article, no, it isn't my favorite, it's next to favorite.
I know.
Application of fertilizer.
Ah,
Is it a petition article?
yes.
Okay, selectmen voted 0 to 5 on this one. Is there anybody who doesn't want to discuss it and take it up tonight?
Oh.
Huh?
As far as I know, it's basically identical to the one that.
You got it,
that
another
we
time
had last
waster?
year.
That's just me? All right, so,
I move to not recommend pending further, is
you want to definitely postpone your article?
that what we want to do?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, NRFPI.
No,
Oh,
that
sorry.
means we need more information.
Oh, sorry,
You wanna-
I want to postpone the article,
No,
sorry.
On a no vote.
indefinitely postpone.
I want to indefinitely postpone, sorry. I don't have my cheat sheet in front of me.
Although, I will say, well, last year when we indefinitely postponed, it came back this year, so. Okay, so your motion is to indefinitely postpone the petition article entitled Application of Fertilizer.
Correct.
Is there a second?
I don't want to second this one.
Okay, nobody wants to second it. Somebody have another motion they want to make? Bob?
I'll make the motion to accept and adopt the petition article.
I'll second that.
Okay, let me keep track. So Bob is Michelle's second. And that was accept and adopt, right? All right, so moved and seconded to accept and adopt the petition article on application of fertilizer. Discussion. Bob?
Yep, as, I guess I could go back and read whatever I said last year, but I won't.
Okay.
I know that one of the arguments, even though people want to protect various rights or whatever, that one of the arguments has to do with enforcement. And to me, these kind of petition articles aren't so much about enforcement, as was actually mentioned at the select board meeting, but they're really about getting a point of view by the town on a topic. And I think it's worth getting out the point of view that the town discourages the utilization of fertilizers as described in the petition article. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay,
Can I,
yeah, go ahead.
may I add? I also believe that, it does provide an exemption for, except for the purposes of commercial agriculture and the residential use of organic fertilizer with low nitrogen and phosphorus. So I think that, I believe the golf course is already using organic fertilizer, if I recall from whenever that was, a year ago or whenever. So it's not like it's it's not like it doesn't give any options or exceptions So I also agree that it's something that we should consider.
Okay.
And I would just, my reading of this, and I'm doing it on the fly right now, is that the article leaves significant discretion to the select board to craft the actual language and regulations. It's not tying their hands. So I'm also in support of this article.
Okay, my opinion is stay off my property, but that's my opinion, so. All right, anybody else want to comment? Ready to vote?
Can we vary the first vote, so I'm not always voting first?
Can you what?
Can we vary who votes first?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Okay. We'll let
I
you,
will
you can
vote-
break the tie, whatever you want to do.
But I will vote aye to IPP. Oh, I'm sorry. Change the motion, sorry. Nay.
Wait. Let's be clear.
Motion is to adopt.
The motion that has been put on the floor and is seconded for this article is accept and adopt.
Yes.
Means yes to this article, just to be clear.
Yep.
So do you want to vote last?
I will vote nay.
Or a no?
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Okay, so let me just make sure I get these things right. And by the way, the chair is a nay. Okay, so we have Bob as a yes. Mark Kelleher is a yes. Dana was not here. Dan, you're a yes, right? Just so I make sure I get this right. Mark, you're a no, a nay.
Do you prefer no or nay?
Putting an N. Michelle, you're a yes, right?
Yes.
Okay, so our vote on this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. 4 yes and 2 no's, so it would pass.
Wasn't it 5 yet?
You got 7.
I'm
Seven.
sorry, what did I get wrong?
You weren't
here?
short
Oh,
on the
Scott,
ayes.
I didn't have you, I'm sorry.
Yep.
You're right. Thank you. That's the reason I have you guys here, it's like, okay. All right, so 5-2.
Peter,
Okay.
you were an A on this?
I'm an A. N.
5-2,
So the
okay.
2 nays were Mark Amorez and myself. Very seldom do we agree, but this one we agreed on. Just teasing, Mark. Okay, next one, kind of a follow-on to this, is a home rule petition on pesticides. So what's your pleasure on, does anybody not want to take this up before I get into it? Okay, so
Skip.
somebody make me a motion.
I'll make a motion that we, to accept and adopt the petition article as written.
I'll second.
Okay. So Bob McCready motion to accept and adopt. And Michelle seconded. So this one, much like the other one, is going along on it's an attempt to reduce pesticides, basically, by amending the bylaw. You had discussion on this?
Certainly, I'll
Yep, go ahead.
comment again, and actually, this is probably more clear to me than the fertilizer one in some regards, that outside pesticides are just, I mean, I'm too bad actually that it doesn't want to try to get to inside things with pesticides, but pesticides are just kill directly and indirectly an astounding number of animals and of all kinds in our culture. And I think it's the less we try to promote them, the better.
Okay, anybody else? Michelle?
Just to follow up on that, I just think that we live in a very unique place and environment, and it's not like we're in the city, and we have this, beautiful ecosystem around us, and I think that it's time that we take a step forward in trying to at least protect it more.
Okay, appreciate that. So Mark, do you want to be first on this one, or you want to?
Aye. I'll vote aye.
You're voting aye, okay.
Nay.
You're voting, wait, you're voting nay.
We're voting, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm just asking it, so let me just make sure I get these down right, because, so Mark, you were an aye.
Aye.
Okay. Dan, you're a nay.
Yes.
Okay, Scott?
Aye.
Okay, Scott's an aye. Bob?
Aye.
Okay. Michelle?
Aye.
Mark? Mark, what's your vote?
He said,
Yes.
You're voting aye. Aye, right?
Yes.
Okay, chairman votes no. So again, only different people,
Interesting.
we're back to a 5-0 accept and adopt. Or excuse me, 5-2 accept and adopt. Okay? I'm not gonna ask Dan to explain, but that's okay. All right, the next one. Okay, the next one is a petition article to rescind Article 2 from the 2022 special town meeting. This has to do with the property, 62 Route 28, which is the First Baptist Church, which has been going around, and the selectmen at one time talked about eminent domain, working with a developer, blah, 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 blah. Then there was the whole concept of the developer potential, or coming back and saying, I want to tear down the thing instead of trying to preserve it. There was a voted town meeting, if I remember right, to include a historic preservation in the article, in the article that was approved. And it seems like we're ready to walk that back if we can. I think that's what this is trying to get done. So I don't know if anybody else has any further insight on this, or...
I just have a question. At one of the board meetings, there was a gentleman, a young gentleman, who stood up and talked about a plan, and he sounded very convincing, and he got a lot of good feedback. How does that fit into this? Is this enabling that guy?
No, that
Or-
if I have, let me give you my
Sorry,
limited
I'm
knowledge
vague
of
on
it.
this.
If you remember, a couple of years ago, they put out to bid the West Harwich Schoolhouse,
Oh,
right?
Okay.
That's behind the Baptist Church,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he's been redeveloping that, fixing it up, and that'll be rental units back there. The same gentleman bought the house and the property, as I understand it, there used to be the parsonage or rectory for this Baptist church,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a different property. It's across the road from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's that one you see all the sand piles on it. And the house looks sort of boarded up, if I'm correct. But we're talking about the Baptist church.
Mm-hmm.
And if I understand it right, the Davenport company were the ones that, I don't know whether it was a bid process or whatever, but the selectmen were working with to try and get the property developed. And I think what happened was they basically came back and said, we want to tear it down instead of trying to historically preserve it. So that's where this is coming from. So it's trying to clean that up. So I read this as saying, by doing this, they start over again. Yeah, Linda.
And toss in there that there is a signed purchase and sale agreement between the Davenport Company and the town of Harwich. So in order to walk this back, that would have to be undone. And I believe that the select board is asking town council how one would get out of a signed purchase and sale agreement.
Yeah.
But that was contingent on maintaining the facade, that original deal with Davenport,
You have to,
or,
I think it talked about exterior historic preservation, which in my mind is more than the facade, but
yeah.
I mean, it's
Okay.
the whole envelope, I think. You know.
And the purchase and sale agreement does not use the same wording that the town
Article
meeting
did.
article from last year used.
So this enables Davenport to ignore the facade preservation aspects of the
No,
project?
it does
No.
not. No, it rescinds that article from town meeting, which said the selectmen could move forward and sell this thing and
So it
have,
goes back to square one and it's not for sale anymore?
that's my
Well,
understanding.
it creates presumably, or the potential for a legal
Yeah,
issue.
Davenport, I think,
Because there's a signed purchase and sale.
they would, I mean, I'm just speculating, that they would claim they have at least expenses associated with what they've done, plans, you know, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
Just so it's clear for me, so when we entered into the purchase and sale agreement with Davenport, did it include the requirement to maintain this historic facade or?
I haven't read it, but my understanding is the words are different than what was, as you mentioned, in the town meeting article. So those words that were voted at town meeting did not get transferred apparently properly or embellished or deleted or whatever in the purchase and sales agreement. So you and I would say the purchase and sale agreement was defective,
Correct.
according to what town meeting action took. So this is trying to clean this up on the front end.
So wouldn't we have protections in that we are only allowed to procure services that align with what was voted by the town and in
Well,
agreement?
here's the rub. The selectmen act on behalf of the town.
Mhm.
The selectmen apparently entered into an agreement, right, wrong, or indifferent. And if someone, one of the parties decides that they were damaged, then they have recourse. I mean, we're not the jury here, but I mean, so.
Thank you.
Is there further information coming on this article?
What's that?
Is there further legal opinion or other information coming on this article? So we
It
should
could be
table
between
it?
now and town meeting. And let me just say that the select board voted 2 in favor of this and 3 against it. So, they voted not to do this, at least at this point in time. I've also heard that it could be that there could be some discussion, whatever, with the attorneys that maybe Davenport decides to cease and desist and this kind of goes away. I don't know, whatever. So now we can hold this. It's not a money article, probably has some implications that do involve money, but to get more clarification, why don't we just hold it? Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
So we'll hold this one.
This one's a petition, so it's in either way.
What?
It's a petition, right? This one?
It is a petition, yeah. Next petition article is accept funds allocated for Great Sand Lake Sewer Extension. This was voted by the selectmen 0 to 5. They did not vote for it. So,
But as I understand it, there's a possibility they may come up with their own article, or is that possibility
Who?
passed already?
Who?
The select board.
I don't know.
Warrant is closed.
Warrant's closed, but at the same time, we don't have a full warrant. You don't have a full warrant in front of
What does
us.
it mean that the warrant is closed? I heard that before.
You can no longer put articles in,
Any articles,
so it's closed.
Correct.
Done.
even though there's no budget article, no
No,
appendix.
it's in the warrant. They had the articles submitted to them, but they have not acted on them to put them in the warrant. So we don't have it yet.
Okay.
In other words, they don't give us all their scraps of paper
Mhm.
until it's put into some,
Mhm.
usually with numbers.
Okay.
But they control the warrant, we don't. We just act on the warrant, okay?
Okay.
So, you want to hold this one as well?
I would like to, see if we can get more
Okay,
information.
okay.
Understand, particularly with a vote by the select board 0-5 as to whether or not there's anything to be gleaned from the select board with regard to why they voted how they did.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
again, the
ne-
presentations have been confusing for me personally, kind of. And
Okay.
I hear Scott's comments earlier.
And a question, can the select board, and can we change our votes after, for instance, the ones we already took tonight?
Yes.
The ones that they've already taken?
Yeah, so what you'll
Can
find
still be
is,
changed.
typically, and I think we had a couple last year, we might have, no recommendation pending further information, based on the deadline when we had to put in our
Right,
votes and our position on things.
right.
And then we subsequently voted yes or no or whatever.
Mhm, okay.
So, yeah, no, that can happen.
Okay.
And by the way, anyone here, when we're talking about these things, at any future time, if they want to move to reconsider an article, because you learned something new, you can bring that up.
To our meeting.
Well, because we're the ones that vote on
Yeah,
it, so I
yeah.
mean, you can bring it up,
Yep.
okay? So, and, it could be that we all decide, yep, let's reconsider, usually because we want to hear what, someone has to say or not say. But doesn't guarantee it, we'll say, yeah, let's do that, so. it's a democratic process there. Okay, next petition article is hire a tree warden, $25,000. I do know the petitioner, I believe, is unhappy with how we figure out how to get rid of trees or cut down trees or do whatever. And the select board voted 2 yes and 3 no's on this one. So do I have a motion?
I move to accept and adopt the article titled petitioned article hire a tree warden in the amount of $25,000 from available funds.
Second.
Moved and seconded, moved by Mark Amorez, seconded by Scott. Accept and adopt this article, $25,000 from available funds. Discussion.
Yes. It doesn't seem to me that we need to be adding more staff at either, whether or not they're on staff or contracted for a purpose like going around and doing some vague definition of what a tree warden might be doing. There are people in the town that are already employees that are capable of making the decisions involved with our tree maintenance.
And my feeling on this is that if you look at the budget message that was put forth by the selectmen when we sat in a couple weeks ago and listened to the enhancement of services request, and the overarching requirement there was have any new positions pay for themselves by show me where the money is in your savings within your budget. This certainly doesn't do that. I think this one is more about some folks that have a gripe about a couple of specific trees that happen. I don't want to grow our government. I don't think we should, so. Okay, any other discussion? All right, and again, the motion is to accept and adopt the amount of $25,000 from available funds to hire a tree warden.
I mean, isn't this just a service that you could procure?
You
know,
could.
you bring somebody in and
You could.
take a look at our town and.
There are ways to do it. We used to have a tree warden in town. That was Link Thatcher, and he did it basically for nothing. I mean, it was basically nothing. So, all right. So the motion is to accept and adopt. Any further discussion?
Well, I would just say that if it weren't for the financial commitment, if it were for the spirit of the article in terms of preserving trees, I would vote aye. But because of what you said and the principle in the budget letter, I'm going to vote nay.
Our job is to deal with the numbers. Michelle?
Although it is an annual appointment, so we could appoint someone for a year, and that doesn't mean you have to, do you have to appoint them every year?
The same person?
Well, I mean, it says you appoint this person for a year. I mean, it seems like a one-time thing to me, really, kind of.
So what are you getting done? You're dealing with one specific tree. I'm being facetious, but.
I think it would be,
Did you ever meet a government job that actually went away after the?
Yeah, exactly.
okay, got it.
The other thing is that these are the words the petitioner put in, not, the town didn't generate this. And sometimes petitioners get hung up in their words, or they're not, you know, correct, so.
Okay.
I thought the motivation was against the clear cutting of lots for developments and not some specific tree on Main Street.
I think that's the next one.
That's the next article.
I think that's the next one. I think this one has more to do with across the library.
Oh,
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
There was
This
this
has to
think
do-
about,
All right.
think about the tree or trees in front of the library and the sidewalk.
yeah,
and all that.
That's
I
what
mean,
this one's about.
Okay, so I'm ready to vote.
Okay, okay, so,
Peter, can I just add in?
Mark.
My interpretation of this article, this tree warden would be called in as needed. In other words, it's not gonna be 25,000, it's only gonna be probably, if there's a tree that needs to be cut down, it's somewhat of a close call in terms of on a public way, bringing the tree warden. So my interpretation of the article is the $25,000 is do not exceed, it will probably be quite a bit less than that.
This says he would regulate shade trees in public places, which tells me everybody that doesn't want to have shade is going to be chasing down a tree warden to do something. I think this one is, I just think it's not worded properly. But anyhow, so the motion is to accept and adopt the article as written. So, Mark, do you want to be first?
Aye.
You're an aye, okay.
I'm an A.
You're an A?
Yes.
Okay.
I like the wording around the authority given to the street.
Scott, what are you?
Nay.
All right, Scott's a nay.
Nay.
Bob's a nay. Michelle? You're a nay?
Nay,
You can't be a no, you're a nay.
sorry, nay.
Okay.
Yes.
Mark?
This is a nay day.
Yay, yes.
You're a yay? And
I'm a yay.
all right, chairman's a nay. So I have 2 yays and 5 nays. So the motion
Correct.
does not pass. Now, just for a little refresher, someone could make a motion, since that one failed, to indefinitely postpone this article.
I'll move that.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second.
What does that do? I'm sorry for my naivete.
Means no, basically.
Okay.
So, Mark, you seconded?
Yep.
So that supersedes the yay nay vote that we just took, or just sits
Yay
beside it?
vote was, well, it'd be nice to get a motion that is actually our motion.
And that is voted in favor of, yeah.
Right.
Okay, understood.
So we could write accept and adopt, and we say 2 versus 5. That means we voted against it. That's all.
Mhm.
And if you're comfortable with that, we can report it that way. If not, we can do the indefinite postponement. What's your pleasure? Let's just ask that. Are you okay with that first vote?
I'm still okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you okay with the first vote?
I am.
Okay, so let's remove the second,
I rescind.
remove the motion. You made the motion, I think, Dan. Yeah, you made the
Yes.
IP motion. Okay, all right. So we're gonna go with what we had. So, Mark, if you're keeping tally, the accept and adopt motion, we had 2 yays, which were you and Mark. So both Marks were yays, and everybody else was a no. Okay?
Got it.
All right, good. All right, next one is petition article, tree preservation bylaw, which I think is pretty much a retread of what we saw last year. Which, if I recall, did not pass. I guess that's why this is back in front of us. There might be some additional something or other in here, I don't know, but it looks very much the same to me, unless somebody sees something different. Okay, are you ready to vote on this one? Does anyone want to hold? Just tell me. By the way, the select board voted 0 yeas and 5 nays, so they were unanimously opposed to this. And as I stated many times last year, I see this one in particular, due to its length and complexity, as being, to me, an undue burden on property owners. That's just me. You may have your own interpretation. Michelle?
So just so I'm clear about this particular one, this is the one that tells a private property owner what trees he or she can cut down on their property?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
That's just what I want to know.
So do I have a motion on this one?
Which motion would you prefer?
What do I prefer as an individual? Well, if you go according to what they have written here, you would move accept and adopt, and then we'd all vote no. But that's just, I'm not trying to push in that direction, but that would be an okay motion to make.
No, would you prefer the positive motion or the negative motion?
Make the positive motion.
Okay, I move to accept and adopt the article entitled Petition to Article, Tree Preservation Bylaw.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we're just getting it up here for discussion.
discussion, yeah.
Okay, so Okay, so the motion before us is to accept and adopt petition article tree preservation bylaw as presented. So,
So I voted yay on the pesticides, yay on the fertilizer. I'm thinking nay on the trees. And the reason is that I think that both pesticides and fertilizers do have effects outside the property line, significant effects. Pesticides for the reasons that Bob mentioned, fertilizers because they get into our ponds and they provide excess nutrients and cyanobacteria blooms and all sorts of other problems. So that's my rationale for yay and yay before and nay today. The trees are, I think, a little bit too much of an aggressive intrusion on a property owner's rights.
that's a reason to broach. Other comments?
Is there a public hearing on this?
On the petition article?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
no.
There's no requirement to have a public hearing on it.
No, but just trying to determine what kind of input was obtained from
Well, you're gonna hear about it on town meeting floor. I mean, just like last year, it's gonna go on for
And it was discussed at the select board.
40 minutes. I mean,
but no public hearing.
if I remember last year, the petitioner may have had his own little session where he tried
Yes, he
to
did.
talk about it somewhere.
He scheduled multiple, like Saturday,
Mhm.
Yeah,
meet
like
and
at the
greet
community
things.
center or something, or,
Mhm.
I mean, it's, the
204
burden is,
Sisson.
huh?
204 Sisson, because we went to one of them.
Yeah, so I mean, the burden, quite frankly, is on the petitioner to sell the article, basically. I mean, it's the burden. So. Okay, any other discussion? Again, the motion is to accept and adopt this article. So if you vote yes, that's to accept and adopt. If you vote no, you're against the article. So, Mark, do you want to go first?
Nay?
So Mark is a nay.
Nay for me?
Nay, Dan.
Nay.
Wait, don't. You're a nay, right? Okay, Bob?
nay.
Wow, this is getting to be interesting. Michelle?
Nay.
Nay. Mark Kelleher?
Nay.
Nay. Chairman's a nay. All right, this one, interestingly enough, is 7-0 against.
Tree haters.
So. Okay, and that's the end of what I had for article material sent to me. I would expect some more to get sent to me, particularly after the selectmen's meeting on Monday, if not sooner. So next week's meeting, which is Thursday, we will devote the entire meeting to deal with the warrant. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. And by the way, who can make it next week at 6 o'clock on Thursday, just so I know?
As far as I know, I'm okay.
Okay, so we'll have a quorum. I just want to make sure we don't get there and not have a quorum, right? Yeah, so I think we're in okay shape. I've had no feedback, just a couple things. I've had no feedback on what I think will be taken up on the 17th of March, and that is the 204 Sisson Road revolving account into the budget. Supposedly at that meeting, the finance director will provide numbers.
Sure.
I will, when we meet on the 18th, depending on what the select board does on that date, if they elect to ignore it, basically, and not put it in, I will suggest to this committee that we either include it in the budget and make the positive motion on the budget, or have them make the positive motion on the operating budget, and we will amend it accordingly. It's my druthers. I mean, you may all say I'm crazy and we shouldn't do it, but
The article that was in the packet this week there is, the revolving fund article is in the packet this past week. And
it is, but it's in at 300,000.
It is in for the 300,000, that's correct.
Yeah, it's the same, and that needs to be like $20,000, assuming we put things in the
Yep.
budget.
Yep.
So, okay. So, all right, I have a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Anybody want to stay? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate your help.
Stop
Yep.
the recording.
We're making